Let's go ahead and take a look inside the trunk of the ID.4. I'm going to try it again. Let's go ahead and take a look inside the trunk of the ID.4. I'm here today with a 2021 Volkswagen ID.4, and I'm very excited to share my driving impressions with you as well as go over some of the interior and exterior features. The ID.4 is an all-new model from Volkswagen. This is their first ground-up designed electric car. This is on an all-new platform. It's called the MEB. They designed this platform with the idea that it would be exclusively intended for electric vehicles. The first car that they used it with is the ID.3, on which this is based. ID.3 is a smaller Golf-size vehicle, and this ID.4 is a little bit bigger, about the same size as the current Volkswagen Tiguan. So that puts it in competition with other popular crossovers, like the Toyota RAV4, one of the very best-selling cars right now, and the Honda CR-V, Subaru Outback, Mazda CX-5. So that's what they're going for with this, trying to convince the mass market that the ID.4 is the car for them to switch from a normal crossover to an electric vehicle. So one of the major benefits of this MEB platform, being designed ground up for an electric vehicle, is that they have considered the fact that there's not an internal combustion engine at the front of the vehicle. So they've done an excellent job maximizing the usable volume of the car, and you can see this here in such a short front overhang, really not much room in front of the wheels, and it's the same deal in the rear, so there's plenty of room for cargo and passengers. To give the ID.4 a little bit more of a sleek look, they've done two contrasting trims on it, which I think is interesting. This helps to make the car appear visually a little bit lower than it actually is. And actually Ford has done the same thing on the Mustang Mach-E, so maybe this is the new trend for electric crossovers. Let's go ahead and take a look under the hood of the ID.4. No gas strut, so I'm gonna have to do this little stick here. Okay, so obviously this is not a cargo area. This is no frunk in the ID.4, but I think now is also a good time to talk about the powertrain. This is a rear-wheel drive vehicle, and it has an electric motor on the rear axle that is good for 201 horsepower and 229 pound-feet. That's a nice round number because that's 150 kilowatts. There's a couple of other cars using 150 kilowatt motors, but a lot of them use two. So this is actually exactly half the power of the Polestar 2, if you think about it that way, because they've only got one 150 kilowatt motor instead of two. There is going to be next year for the US an ID.4 with all-wheel drive and 300 horsepower, so it'll have an additional motor on the front axle. But for now, 201 horsepower, 229 pound-feet. Now the battery in the ID.4 is a 77 kilowatt hour lithium-ion battery. However, the actual size of it is 82 kilowatt hours, so Volkswagen is leaving a little bit of buffer space there to preserve the length of the battery life. When you plug this into a DC fast charger, it will only charge at a maximum speed of 125 kilowatts, which translates to a charging time from 5 to 80% in 38 minutes. These are the rims that you get on the first edition of the Volkswagen ID.4. We've also got the white new VW logo here. These are a 235/20 on the front, 255/20 on the rear, and I like how they've even though they've used a very flat aerodynamic wheel, they've got the silver contrasting with the black, which still gives you some kind of a wheel design, even though this is pretty much basically a disc with 5 slots out of it. Let's go ahead and take a look inside the trunk of the ID.4. Power liftgate opens quickly. I like that Volkswagen does this cargo cover thing. They've got this on some of their other models. I think it's really great and doesn't take too much away from the cargo room and helps keep your stuff hidden. Pretty spacious in here. It looks about the same size as a Tiguan's, the trunk in a Tiguan. They've done something here where they've raised the entire load floor a little bit, and they've given you this compartment here. Maybe that's for hiding something secret. but also it does give you deeper pockets on either side for stowing cargo that you might want to keep securely in these little pockets on the sides. This is the charge port door on the ID.4. It's on the back right-hand side. You can see that they've got this little cup-shaped thing which helps to protect the connector in here from getting wet. And then whenever you want to use a DC fast charger, you just go ahead and pull this guy out, and that'll give you the DC terminals. Let's go ahead and step inside the ID.4. Actually, it's got some very nice flush door handles, but the way that you operate it is just stick your hand in here and pull, and there's a button. It's not going to pull out the whole door handle, so it's just an electronic release there. All right. I think that the interior of the ID.4 is very cool. I really like that they've done the contrasting white and black. Very unusual to see a white steering wheel, but I think it's really fun and helps to give this car a little bit more personality. Very few actual mechanical buttons in the cockpit of the ID.4. All of these buttons on the steering wheel are capacitive touch. I think that the center screen here for the driver is a little bit small, but I do really like that it comes with the steering column. So as you adjust your steering wheel, it moves with it. That way you're not going to block your own vision of the driver's gauge cluster with the top of the steering wheel. So this is the drive selector on the ID.4. You twist it forward and back for forward and reverse. I think that it is extremely confusing the way that they've drawn this arrow indicating which way you should twist it for drive and which way you should twist it for reverse. For me, it's kind of a optical illusion type deal where you can look at it one way and the arrow's facing one way, and then you look at it the other way, it's facing the other way. Coming back here, the mirror controls, it's interesting. This is a infinitely scrollable wheel here, so you can just scroll this around. It selects the different functions, but normally these mirror adjustment wheels have notches for left and for right, and then a neutral position. But this one is just a infinitely variable rotary encoder switch, so that one can just spin around. Another very interesting thing is that there's only 2 window controls. So if you want to go for the rear, they've got this thing here that says rear. You push that, it controls the rear windows instead of the front. So they also do have a start button down here on the stock. You technically don't need to use it. Whenever you get in the car, put your foot on the brake pedal, it's ready to go. But in case you want to really be sure that the car is on or off, you can go ahead and push this button down here on the steering column. So this is the infotainment screen for the ID.4. There was some reports in the early production models that it was quite laggy and difficult to use. I don't think that that's the case with this one. It seems to be perfectly responsive. I don't know if you saw that. When you bring your hand close, it brings up more text, so it predicts your hand coming in. If you want to go to the home screen and scroll around, I mean, it seems to be fine to me in terms of scrolling and in terms of response. So actually, I think it's a pretty intuitive system. Everything that you need to find is where you would expect it to be. What I don't like is that the climate controls here are not buttons, they are capacitive touch. And then down here, you've got some shortcut buttons for the different menus. Climate control, driver assist, drive mode. It does have different drive modes. In theory, the drive mode changes a lot of stuff. For me, it really just changes the color of the screen. They've got, if you go here for sport, everything becomes red. Stepping into the rear of the ID.4, something that I immediately noticed is that the rear seats are much higher than the front ones. I'm not really sure why they did that. Obviously, there is some battery underneath me right here, but it is a little bit weird how the rear seats are so much higher in the car than the front ones. Another benefit of the MEB platform is that there's no center transmission tunnel bump like you will get in so many other cars. So for the person sitting in the middle seat, there's no bump where their feet are supposed to go. So even though it is a little bit tight back here to have 3 adults sitting across, yes, you can have somebody sitting in the middle and they don't have to straddle the center transmission tunnel hump. These seats are also perforated like the front, and there is a center armrest, which is made of a nice soft touch material. Again, I think they've done a really interesting material with the foam throughout the seats and the armrest surfaces on this car. It's very, very squishy, comfortable, but I do wonder how it's going to hold up over time. There is a pass-through if you want to send skis or something through here, so that you do have that option. And another fun feature is they have a pocket for you to store your phone. I think that's what it's for. They've got it on the back of the front seats here, so there's a nice little pocket here, which is just about phone sized. Part of the special equipment that is included with the first edition of the Volkswagen ID.4 is this very large panoramic sunroof. This is, I don't know, I think I'm going to say this is the biggest one that I've ever seen. And considering that this is hardly the biggest car that I've been in, that's quite a statement. It really is a very large panoramic sunroof. The shade, however, takes so long to come all the way back and forth. I do think that they could have used a little bit more powerful of a motor for that. But as you can see, it is a sunny day, and even with it open, there's not too much harsh light coming onto here, so they've got an appropriate filter on top of the panoramic glass. All right, let's see how the ID.4 does from a launch. All right, so there's definitely full torque at launch, 229 pound-feet, that is, but certainly doesn't get moving that quickly. The ID.4 is rated for 0 to 60 in 7.6 seconds, which is on par with other, or a little bit faster than some other more pedestrian crossovers like the Toyota RAV4, Honda CR-V, Subaru Outback, stuff like that. But certainly doesn't have the very quick acceleration that a lot of people have come to expect from other electric cars. Another difference about the driving experience of the ID.4 compared to other electric vehicles is that the regenerative braking functionality is really only activated when you put it into the B drive mode. And even then, it is not strong enough for bringing the vehicle to a complete stop. So as you cruise along in the ID.4, you can activate the massaging seat function. That's pretty unheard of in the $40,000 SUV segment. So there's a little button down here by the seat controls where you can activate the massage function. However, I was a little bit disappointed because basically it only is the lumbar support actuator that's performing the massage. So it'll move forward, back, up, down, and it will get your lower back, but that's it. So there's nothing in the actual seat cushion and nothing higher up to get at your shoulders. And the cabin in this ID.4, you can tell they have focused a little bit more resources into sound deadening, because it is an electric car and there's not going to be any NVH from the engine and powertrain. It is really important to make sure that the rest of the cabin is quite well insulated from road noise, because a lot of those other rattles and noises are going to be a lot easier to hear because you aren't listening to the sound of the engine. So I think they've done a really good job with this car, and the cabin is, I would definitely say it's more quiet than its crossover competition like CR-V and RAV4. It's definitely not quite luxury car levels of quiet, but the insulation from the kind of critical spots, which are going to be wind noise coming from the side mirrors, and considering how large they are, the wind noise is very low, and also noise from the tires on the road. Those are going to be your main sources of noise, especially for an electric car, and they've done a really good job addressing those. And as soon as you even start to push it just a little bit in terms of driving quickly around corners and stuff, I mean, you can really tell that this is not designed to be a sports car. There's really a lot of body roll, and it really loads up the outside and doesn't maintain balance throughout the corner. So Volkswagen has been pretty clear in their marketing of this vehicle that they do not consider it to be a competitor against luxury electric crossovers like the Ford Mustang Mach-E and the Tesla Model Y. And I think that's appropriate because this car really is not on their level in terms of the performance, and for them to advertise that kind of performance and for people to expect that from this car is unreasonable. I think a much better way to think about it is this is a really nice upgrade over something like a Toyota RAV4 or a Honda CR-V or even Volkswagen's own Tiguan. It's more comfortable, more quiet, it's a little bit faster, and it's not that much more expensive. And it really makes the transition of going from a gas to an electric vehicle really very easy. It's not too different. They've added a couple of key features which help to make it easier to drive for the first-time EV owner. I think they've added a hold functionality that is based in the motor instead of in the brakes. So when you come up onto a hill and you let off the accelerator, the vehicle will hold itself just like a traditional torque converter automatic transmission combustion vehicle will do. And as well as that, the way that the regenerative braking works in the normal D driving mode is very similar to the way you would experience engine braking in a normal gas vehicle. So those are a couple of key places where they've made the drivability more similar to a gas engine vehicle, and really they've made it a very easy choice to upgrade to this from something like a Tiguan. It's a little bit nicer, a little bit faster, a lot quieter, and not too much more expensive. So overall, I think that the ID.4 is a really well-balanced normal car that just happens to be an electric one. If you are currently driving a normal crossover like millions of people across the United States, it's not that big of a jump to go into something like this. And the range, I mean, people worry so much about the range, but until you've actually lived with an electric car and realized how easy it is to charge it up, I mean, if you are able to have a charger at your home, that is. If you're able to have a charger at your home, it really is not a big deal. So I think they've done a really good job with this car, and it really stands out from the competition in the gas-powered segment as a really nice upgrade. So yes, I recommend this car.